guy's called Herman Berman. Check out the...
Is this our new intro or something? Is that the guy who made this song?
Yeah.
Hanukkah. This is like a very Uncut Gems.
I could totally see this being in the movie, ironically.
With his diamond earrings.
Josh and Benny Safdie need to come hit me up. I'm going to show them this song.
They do. They
Hey,
need to.
honey.
Josh and Benny Safdie, what did they do?
They are movie makers.
Oh, movie makers. Are they from New York?
I have a feeling.
I think they might be from New York. I got a real sense of affection for the city of New York, for the spirit of New York.
Yes. Where is Good Times? That's Baltimore, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that's
the
right.
DMV.
Yeah.
They love the city, baby.
They do. They do love the city. Well, because their breakthrough, which was Heaven Knows What, I think that was set in New York City as well. And actually, they were developing this film, Uncut Gems, when they met the young woman who stars in Heaven Knows What.
Yeah, this thing has been in the works for a long time.
For a long time, which makes sense why they said it then in like 2013, because then they didn't have to. 2012, because then they didn't have to like update any of the trappings at that point. And
isn't the idea that the original idea was that they wanted to make a movie around the Kevin Garnett playoffs?
Yes, I think that's right. But yeah, they were researching the Jewish jewelry industry district,
The Diamond District. Yeah, I think they also wanted to set it around that too. There's like two big ideas.
Yeah.
Two contrasting ideas, like on the surface, basketball and the Jewish Diamond District.
Well, and I mean, you know, they have the clever turn of a phrase by having Kevin Garnett, you know, Garnet being a stone, like a valuable stone, as well.
Yeah, the NBA should probably look into Kevin Garnett having a magical stone that helped him play better in the playoffs. They should probably look into that.
They really should look into that, but only after they sort out their policy on Hong Kong.
I guess I can never bring up the NBA without Addison bringing up Hong Kong.
Bad here for China. We've got Hong Kong. We've got coronavirus. I mean, things are not going great.
That's what they get for shitting on the NBA.
And also...
That's a bad take. Sorry.
That is a bad take.
They're being punished by the basketball gods. You know that the first,
LeBron was like, "We'll get you. Don't worry."
The first point was scored by a Jewish man in the NBA.
That's right.
Yeah? Yeah, they said that in the movie, didn't they?
Did. Yeah, that was his...
Did they?
a weird conversation about why Jews love basketball. So
yeah,
much.
with Lakeith, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, when he goes to see Garnett to try and get the stone back. Anyways, hello, welcome to Be Honest, Addison, Josh, Jackson. We saw Uncut Gems.
Oh my god.
What do you know?
I don't know. I just know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. It's the dumbest fucking bet I ever heard of.
I disagree. I disagree, Gary.
Directed by Benny and Josh Safdie. This is like their fifth movie overall, but their third kind of mainstream release following Good Time and Heaven Knows What. Starring Adam Sandler, which I think is maybe one of this film's like most brilliant kind of master strokes. Brad Pitt was interviewing Adam Sandler, actually. And I think this was before the Oscar nominations were announced, and Adam Sandler was kind of like one of the leading names to be nominated for Best Actor. So they were having the presumed nominees interview each other. So Brad Pitt was interviewing Adam Sandler. And Brad Pitt had this really good insight where he said, I think that it was great casting you because you have kind of this warmth, and the audience also has this association with you of being kind of like a fun, normal guy. And that's what makes this guy's arc through this movie so much more perilous is because of our association with you as this like nice guy. It's basically kind of like a shorthand, they didn't even really need to establish his character that much because we know Adam Sandler. And I thought that was like a really interesting insight. Good for you, Brad Pitt. Like, I think you're absolutely correct.
It was just me alone and the screen, and it kind of rocked me hard. I thought it would have it got me better than it would in the theater. Not hard, not hard. Rocked me, not hard.
Okay.
Well, Adam Sandler's character is interesting because, yeah, we do have the pre-existing relationship with Adam Sandler, and then we're taken to a point where we don't, like, we're introduced to him in a way that seems comical, and it's kind of just like offbeat, and so we're like spending like the first opening sequence of just like figuring out who Adam Sandler is going to be playing as. Is he taking this seriously? Is this like too much of a joke? Because when I've watched it, like him as a character, I was like kind of like amused, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to laugh or not. So it was like a really like nice twist on the character we thought we were getting out of him, like this goofy, like completely 100% non-serious character. And as the movie develops, he becomes much more serious, and you start to kind of build a relationship with him. What's his name? Harold?
Yeah, Harold. I can't remember his last name, but yeah, I mean, he starts out like, you know, kind of goofy Adam Sandler guy. I mean, with maybe just a little bit more of a serious edge to it. You know,
When does this movie start? I forget.
I remember him walking around. What does he do? He's on the phone?
Oh, he's pawning stuff. He pawns the Michael Jackson on the cross
Yes.
necklace.
Yeah, to the guys who.
Well, it starts out fucking stressful because he's like trying to get money so that he can get more money, and so he's on the phone with all these different people, and he's like, just wait, I'll be in the shop.
Yeah, they're like, they're waiting for you. They're waiting.
That's
for
right.
you.
That's right. They're waiting
And
for
then-
him at his
And then
diamond
it
shop.
actually sets up a lot of different things with the buzzer is not working when he's trying to get in, and then that's also when Kevin Garnett's in there.
He gets the opal
That's
at
right,
that point
yeah.
too, that arrives by mail.
So many things are converging on this. Like,
Yeah, this movie's so frantic, it's hard to get the timeline right.
Yeah, but truly, it has like a pretty good setup and structure, but yeah, it's like all within the first 5-10 minutes. All of our stakes basically are established right then and there, and then it's just like basically a nonstop thrill ride. I mean, like, this movie doesn't let you breathe for the entirety of its what like 2-hour running time,
Yeah,
maybe a
it's
little
like-
over
it's
2
like
hours.
a minute over, yeah.
It's really like a character study on like a manic person, where it's like kind of like they have their like valleys, but it's mostly just nonstop roller coaster.
There's a couple things like this is an addiction movie, which is kind of similar to like Heaven Knows What, which was about heroin addiction. This one's about gambling addiction. And I thought it was interesting. I'd never seen a movie that depicted gambling addiction like it's any other addiction. You know, like most of the time it is treated as, oh, it's an addiction, but it's not heroin. You know, like, it's not as destructive as those types of addictions are.
It's not like such a biochemical like addiction as it's just something that, oh, I just can't stop doing it.
Yeah, but this one I felt like it was a biochemical addiction. He was addicted to that adrenaline, that rush that he got from it.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that I didn't think of it as an addiction movie, but now that you say it out loud, it definitely is. And it manifests in so many different ways. It's not like he's going to the casino every day and just like,
Right.
gamble, 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 gamble. That's how gambling works.
It's not that it's not mundane like that.
Yeah, it's like I'm making risks in my everyday relationships, which in itself is a gamble, and like, you know, like I just can't help but to make poor decisions because like that's whatever gambling does for me, I want to do that in my everyday life.
Yeah. And his family hates him so fucking much in this movie. They hate him so much. It's so obvious. But he's like oblivious to it, seemingly. Yeah, no, I that was one of the things that stood out to me. I was like, oh, wow, this is a really interesting depiction of gambling addiction and just how ugly it can get.
Have you guys known anybody who's addicted to gambling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're related to a couple people.
Well, that's true. I lived with a guy in college he was older, and he was definitely manic, and he was addicted to gambling. And this movie is like a spitting image of him.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Where it was, you know, you have this parlay mentality where you're gonna hit it big because parlays pay out so much. It's like you're just playing the lottery.
And so the idea basically with a parlay, because I'm not super familiar with sports gambling, is like you have these sets of conditions that basically like multiply your bet by this much and then this much and this much, and if you hit on all of them, then you're getting like a 10-time payout,
It's a huge
basically,
payout,
right?
Especially if the odds are are against you.
Yeah.
Which I think that's well, we'll talk about it later, but towards the end, that's where Vegas doesn't know what we know, so that's him, he's got the odds against him and he's going to make a huge payout.
I did know the Kevin who managed Fat Jack's was a big sports gambler. And I went over to his house one time. He had notebooks filled with like diagrams of like the court and how they're moving on the court and point averages and all this stuff. Like it was a serious business for him, like a serious obsession. And again, it's one of those things that seems harmless. If I had gone over there and I had found like his kit with like a needle and a spoon and like some cotton, I would have been like, I think you have a problem. But I of course didn't think that. And so that was, again, not to be too redundant here, but that was one of the things I found most interesting about this movie was its depiction of addiction like that.
You're taking my money all over town, placing bets.
I'm having very serious second thoughts.
Are you serious right now?
I know I fucked up.
Howard, where's the money right now?
Howard, got my money? Howard!
Is it too late?
You were talking about franticness.
Yes.
Now this movie is just kind of like going on and on and on, and it seems like it's just constantly rising.
Yes.
And I think I don't want to jump too far ahead in the movie, but there's a point where I think where Kevin Garnett, who's very fun in this movie, I kind of liked him. I don't think his acting's amazing, but
It's serviceable.
it does its job. But
the directors actually work with him really well on it.
Yeah, and I think I'm just like, he's also just kind of just this huge presence, and he's kind of menacing, and he's also just like kind of weird, which is it was just like so I guess good direction. But he goes to play the game in Philly, and then Lakeith Stanfield goes to get he goes with him so that he can like keep an eye on the stone, and then I forget what Harold's doing, but he comes like Lakeith is like I didn't get it, and he comes back to pick up Harold. And so there's like kind of this moment of like pause where it's like it seemed like the movie was slowing down. I was like, okay, now we're gonna have like I don't know some weird stuff going on, and then Adam Sandler's like, we're going back to Philadelphia, let's go. And then the movie just picks right back up again, and it's like fucking like hectic, and they go to the practice arena or whatever. I don't know, it's just like a movie that I just wanted to bring that point up. I guess was just like there's just like these weird frenetic rhythms of the movie that don't quite make sense until you have the whole thing present.
Well, I was concerned the Opal was going to be a MacGuffin at first, and it turns out to not be, thankfully. Like, it actually does serve an overall purpose. And yeah, the first act of the movie is, okay, he's lent out the stone, now he's got to get the stone back. Okay, he gets the stone back, now it's getting the stone to auction. The second act is he's got the stone in his possession now he's got to get it to auction and get Kevin Garnett basically to pay X amount of money for it, and then presumably parlay that money into a huge sports bet, win, and then be set up for the rest of his life. That's kind of the overall plot of the movie. But the way that it achieves, beyond these kind of story beats, the way that it achieves this like high wire tension the whole way through is of course through the sound design and the cinematography. Like the cinematography is very handheld, kind of documentary-esque, where it's like right up in people's faces, and it's like jittery, and then there's people constantly fucking talking over each other.
Sound mixing is incredible.
Apparently
they spent like weeks after the movie was done just mixed, like the Safdie brothers, they were mixing more and more sound into it. They like called Adam Sandler to like get more stuff for him to say. They just were like constantly like obsessed with having, it worked because it felt like Roma, where they had all, I don't know if you watched.
Does every movie remind you of Roma now?
1917's like Roma.
Uncut lady like doing her parlay.
She's talking out loud her numbers, just sweeping the water. No, but like in Roma, when I watched it, there was the surround sound, and there's people talking behind you, and you hear people enter rooms behind you, and it's like kind of like disorienting.
Well, the jewelry room, like where he has where he's selling, that room is just like a panic room.
Yeah, it's just a cacophony of sound with the buzzing going on and the people talking and the phone ringing.
Yeah, and I think in a traditional movie, you like when you hear something, you're like, oh, I need to pay attention to this, and like they're putting this on here on purpose, and I think they're still doing that on purpose, but it's like I'm watching it and I'm thinking like, oh, I need to hear what they're saying, I need to hear what they're saying, and I'm like thinking all this matters, and it's really just like a representation of like just chaos, and not necessarily that each individual thing matters like in most movies, but that the combination of them is the most important thing. It's fucking stressful, and I had a really tough time watching it.
You and your whole fucking family. I heard you resurface your fucking swimming pool. You know how that makes me feel?
Never
You think your life is more important than
I
my
don't
life?
know who said that.
You guys want to talk about some of these characters that they introduced? Like some of my favorites were
twins.
Were they the ones at the pawn shop where he brings Kevin Garnett's rings? No, they're not.
Oh
twins,
no, they're not twins. Yeah,
they're just like some Jewish guys who run a competing pawn shop, which I didn't feel like they were professional actors. Like
no, they run those shops.
They were just real guys.
The movie's filled with non-professional actors, and that pawn shop is owned by his brother-in-law, I believe. Correct?
I didn't get that feeling. I feel like they were just friends.
Well,
they seemed like the only people who were actually concerned about him.
they were. I think that's because though the brother-in-law owned the shop, because that's the money that he takes to go and do the first parlay bet that the guy ends up canceling, that his brother-in-law ends up canceling.
Not pick up on that. Okay.
I believe that to be the case. I could be wrong.
He has that money for the first parlay because he sends him a picture of the money. He's like, "I got your money."
Yes.
And then he goes and gambles it away.
Yes.
You stopped the bet?
You stopped the bet.
Also, just infuriating. Like, I think that's the point of the movie where things are like kind of clicking for him. Like in a traditional movie, you think like, oh, here's some success, and then just other shit just keeps happening where he keeps fucking up, or people fuck up around him because they don't trust him or they hate him.
Well, I mean, he's a complicated character because you're rooting for him in some places, but he's a huge piece of shit. Like he can stop this anytime he wants because. First, he does.
Well, right now he can't because he owes like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I think it's just $100,000.
Is it? Well, yeah. I mean, you can't.
It seems that at a lot of points in this film, he has the money.
He does have the money.
Immediately, when he has money, he goes and gambles it.
Yeah, he thinks, oh, I could pay these guys back, and I could make myself some money on the back end too. So
and he
we'll
also
do that.
has his father-in-law who seems to just have enough money to just help him out if he needs it.
Right.
That's because that scene, the auction scene.
Yeah, he gets his father-in-law to pay $800,000.
Oh, it was $180,000.
$180,000. Okay.
Because he thought that because they were trying to bid against KG to up the bid to like 200 to what he thought it deserved to be,
because it was way undervalued. And
right, which is interesting too, because like the whole movie is like you have all these different characters saying different things about the stone. Like KG thinks it's a thing from outer space, and it might be, and then Adam Sandler thinks it's like another thing, and then you get to the auction thing, and these people are saying like, oh, it's this. So it's like all these confusing things. So you're watching the movie thinking like, I don't know, it just like leaves you in this space of uncertainty about the stone, and then what its value, and then like what these characters like are doing, like in I don't know, relationship to it.
Well, it's interesting, of course, too, that the movie opens with us, going through this stone, and it's like going through the stars and traveling through the cosmos, and then we end up in Adam Sandler's asshole.
It's
a very good opening.
Yeah, and then the movie ends. I guess spoilers. Movie ends with us going through his fucking bullet wound in his cheek, and then it blossoms into the stone again. So there's kind of like this visual metaphor, sort of, for like the attractiveness of this stone, like the way that this stone for some reason communicates with people on like a molecular level. as far as the side characters are concerned, it was rich with these like really interesting non-professional actors. I like the twins too, who he gives like the fake Rolex to.
Yes. Which they actually, they have a really interesting, like subtle storyline that they don't really talk about. Which I didn't pick up on this, but somebody said it, which later on in the movie you see that they've clearly gotten the shit beat out of them.
Yes.
Because they owe money to somebody else. So
yes.
It's just this ecosystem of these pieces of shit who are like, oh, you know, Adam Sandler owes money to them, they owe money to somebody else, and then
ecosystem.
That was interesting.
That's a good word. Ecosystem.
Yeah, it is. It's a fragile ecosystem of people constantly borrowing against what they owe and fucking up.
And also Adam Sandler's safe that supposedly has he's safekeeping all these things for people. And Lakeith Stanfield finally makes it inside. It's literally just empty boxes of shit that he has like brought to these.
Just given away.
Like the Chinese like Diamond District, I guess, and has pawned. You know.
Mm-hmm.
He is the Chinese Diamond District. I thought the twins were like a Tim Heidecker or like a fucking Tim and Eric, like just like people that they found on the street. Apparently they worked with them. I think they're the two. The Safdie brothers worked with.
I've seen them before.
And like when they were when Josh Safdie was going to film school or whatever, or they both were. But yeah, and they just wanted to be a part of it. Yeah, they're just really authentically weird and like cartoonish characters.
They do a good job kind of keeping the suspense up sometimes, because you're like, oh, he's been caught again, but really they're powerless to get their money back.
It is funny when they confront them and then he just says fuck off or here's a watch, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, you could tell he's above them in this hierarchy.
He's figured out who he can fuck with and who he can't. Like, who's going to roll over when he says, I don't got the money, and who's going to be like, okay, time to break your knees then.
That's an added layer of suspension suspense, where you have these characters following Harold. And it's not necessarily something that is like central to the plot, but you're like reminded of it, and then that just like adds to the anxiety of like, oh my god, when this comes to a head.
It's Harold chasing this gem that Kevin Garnett has, and then all these people chasing him, trying to get their money back from him.
I thought it was so weird that when he gets the stone back, there's like almost no like relief. There's no like there's no scene where he's like, I got the stone. He just gets it and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go put it in the auction. We're like, wait, we're already at this point. I thought there's gonna be some sort of like.
I feel like the only scene that's there is like a moment of like, maybe this is gonna work, is when he brings the box of donuts to the desk and he's like, today's the big day, and then he opens the book and sees they have like grossly undervalued it in his opinion
by like 80% what he was projecting.
Get $1 million for it.
Yeah, and they want to do it for like 150 or 200,000.
Which means that he basically will make no money. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's just a complete wash. As far as the other characters in the film are concerned, what'd you guys think of the girlfriend?
I enjoyed
that
her
giant ass.
Do you think was that an ass implant?
I wouldn't be surprised,
because it did not look like at all natural to her body. It didn't look like it was a part of her.
Such a weird scene where he's in the closet, like you can hear him breathing, and he's like, and him tapping on his phone.
It's such an odd. Oh my god, I felt so uncomfortable watching this.
Yeah, me too.
I thought that
he's like, "Are you wet,
dude?" Which I think is kind of what they wanted you to think.
Right? Yeah,
or it's just like, oh, this gross old dude's gonna watch his side piece cheat on him,
right?
With the Weeknd,
with the Weeknd, which was such a like weird cameo.
That closet scene though, real quick, was so sweet. It turned out so sweet compared to how it started, where you think it's gonna be like this awful thing that he's gonna witness, and then it like fades out with them just making out on the couch about the fuck, which is very nice. But like there's some sort of like relationship and companionship. Overall, I thought the character was frenetic as well, and probably problematic, and maybe not the best fit for each other, but
kind of underdeveloped. But I think that's kind of, they weren't that concerned with developing her character.
Yeah, well, to the closet scene, I think it's interesting that they took something that was fairly banal, really, and made it tense. Like they found a way to basically take these like relatively normal situations and then boom, find some way to ramp up that tension. Mm-hmm. And then sustain it through the whole movie. That sustainment of tension is what's probably most remarkable about this. What I think is interesting about her character is that she's the one that ultimately wins. Mm-hmm. She's the one that gets away with the money.
Well, and she makes important decisions on her own. They aren't people aren't telling her what to do. At a certain point, she's on her own when
Yeah.
she's at the casino. So she's
that
making
weirdo
decisions.
old guy. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and she's coming up with ways to avoid being essentially killed by these by the guys that are chasing Harold the whole movie.
Yes.
So I liked her resolution as a character.
The weirdo old guy was he must be like a real person who's like that. He's just too perfect.
He is.
And he like he doesn't want to have sex with her. I feel like he just wants to be seen with her.
Yes.
Is the thing where he's like, I got people coming over.
I don't think he could
people
really
are gonna be
put a
banging on the
performance.
door. Just open it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's it. Is he wants the appearance of being with someone like that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's old. His dick probably doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck about actually having sex with her.
That whole sequence of her making the bet and then waiting for it to pay off, and then her moving around throughout the hotel. It was like, I was just like, at that point in the movie, I was like, man, if I see her die, I don't know how I'm gonna react because I've already decided. I just
can't see it go.
Press F to pay respects for that ass.
yes.
You want to look that Howie tattoo?
Oh, I'm so glad she got the Howie tat. That was.
I love that moment in his office. So
where he's crying with tissue up his nose.
Yeah, every fucking thing I do keeps fucking up. I can't do fucking.
I just felt so icky watching that.
Also, where he's like huddled up, running into his office, like
Yeah.
himself.
Don't look at me.
Yeah,
I'll be in my office.
Which again, it just works so well because it's Adam Sandler. Like if it was a different actor, I can't imagine having the level of sympathy that I had for him when he just continues to fuck up and fuck over other people. One thing I thought was interesting is they have the Passover scene where he's doing the plagues, right, with the wine. He's dipping his and like this was I felt at several points through the movie that was very biblical, the way that they were structuring it, like he was like Job, where like just series of misfortunes were visited on him throughout the whole thing.
He wasn't God-fearing.
Right. It wasn't because of his faith in God. It was because of his, if nothing else, complete lack of faith in anything but himself.
Like a modern day
I think Job is his brother-in-law.
Yeah, I could see that too. He's
really an unfortunate character because he's like really not. He's just trying to get his money.
He's just trying to get his money back. He's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like he's just trying to get it back. And one thing I wasn't quite positive about his guys, his henchmen. It seems like maybe they have a little bit of a history of working together, but obviously there's not like a deep allegiance there or anything.
Which I think is that's their way of switching it up on you because you don't know he's his brother-in-law.
Until the Passover
scene, and then you get the feeling like, oh, he's kind of just a guy, and he must have just kind of contracted out these guys to try to help him get his money back.
Yeah, and then of course the end. So the end is
it the Passover scene? I thought it was the scene where at the play.
No, you don't know that he's your brother. He's the brother-in-law.
Right, because we have that really horrible when he like strips him down, and then I think a scene or two later, they're at
You're going around making these bets with my fucking money. That's the car scene. So the only thing, and I feel like maybe this was on purpose. So I don't know that I can really call it like a detriment. The only thing about this movie that I didn't love was that I saw the end a mile away. Like I knew exactly what was going to happen, probably even before the halfway mark. I knew there was no way this guy was getting away with this. I was positive he was going to die.
The car scene did it for me.
Yeah,
I think that was a real stake. And it was no longer kind of like this fun, bumbling guy who's just fucking up. It became a lot darker for me.
Yeah, I mean, because of the audience's history with Adam Sandler, I'm sure there were a lot of people who assumed he was going to get away with it. His girl was going to get the money. They were going to live happily ever after in Las Vegas or something like that. But I knew the filmmakers, and I knew that they weren't about to, end the movie on a happy note. So I was a little disappointed that it turned out how I expected it to turn out.
Well, I mean, there's no way you could have imagined like exactly how it would turn out.
No, not exactly.
Which I think that scene is really interesting, where like you have this really weird circumstance where these debt collectors are locked in his lobby while they watch him watch the game and win big, and then right when they get out, the like Russian guy or whatever he is. Like, you don't even see him pull the trigger. You just see Adam Sandler walking.
There's no build
them,
up.
And then all of a sudden, just like, boom.
It's
blow
like
back.
Yeah.
That whole thing is like a fourth act, essentially. Like
Yeah.
you think you have the climax where he gets the stone back, or Kevin Garnett gives it back to him, and he gets the ring back, and then from the bet on, it's like another act. So there's like 2 climaxes and a third climax where he gets shot in the face, because the big climax is him winning.
What's his brother-in-law's name?
Jebediah.
Arnold, maybe. I feel like it might be Arnold. I'm not positive though. Why?
Oh, I was just trying to remember because I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, like where he
gets capped.
He immediately loses this kind of tough guy persona when he sees Howie get his brains blow out.
There's a
and
moment
he's
of
just
grief.
Trying to get out. Oh, and that buzzer is such a great tool to build tension because it's just like everyone's trying to get out.
And the jostling the door and the buzzing and again, going back to like the sound design of this movie is pretty incredible.
You having a good time?
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, overall, I loved the movie. I mean, it was a visceral experience. It made me feel things in a big way, a wide spectrum of emotions. I thought it was great and absolutely one of the best films of the year.
But you don't think it deserves an Oscar nom?
Well, I was going to get there. It absolutely deserved to be nominated for Best Picture. Adam Sandler, much as I hate the fucker's other movies, absolutely deserved a nomination for Best Actor, Best Sound Design, Best Cinematography. Like, this movie was absolutely snubbed. And apparently the inside Hollywood reports are that the old white men who, are on the board couldn't get over Adam Sandler's status as basically a fucking clown, right? Who threw his...
Oh, Adam Sandler can't be an Oscar nom.
Right. Like, he's made so many bad movies that are essentially like a fuck you to the Hollywood system.
To classic Hollywood.
It's a classic Hollywood that
What about
he shouldn't
50
deserve
First
it.
I mean, like, they saw 50 First Dates, right? And they knew he is a class actor.
Okay, Howley, what do you think? You can come to this island, eat our pineapple? Help me!
Ow, not so hard. Take it easy.
Trying to bang our women. Making my sister clean your hotel room.
Okay, what does that have to do with this? Relax. Hey, help me, please.
Adam Sandler falls in love with a girl and it turns out she's a golden retriever. We'll call it puppy love.
Oh, South Park.
Oh, South Park.
That would be... I don't think I believe that. I would just be such a weird, like... You can't be that naive to not realize this isn't like a Adam Sandler Netflix movie because it's A24. These directors, like,
yeah.
I don't think it's a Sandler thing. I think it's a Safdie brothers thing. I think there's some sort of resistance for letting them in, and these people, they don't sit in a room and decide on these movies. They all pick them individually, and it's all based on their own perceptions of. And so they're watching this movie and thinking like, this isn't kind to whatever there's a lot of older white Jewish people and maybe they view this unkindly. I don't know.
I actually watched this movie behind these 4 older Jewish guys, and it was kind of funny because they were obviously like, oh, this is our night away from our wives and we're gonna go see this new movie about Jewish people in New York. And I don't think it was
charming Jewish movie.
It was gonna be.
It's not an unfavorable depiction, but no, it's.
If anything, I think it's a celebration. I love that scene where he's walking down the street in the Diamond District. He's like, "Oh, hey, you're Jewish again. How you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but I think you can still read it wrong, or
hey,
maybe you don't want people seeing this depiction of Jewish people. Maybe you believe in a purist
of the Diamond District.
It's it's somewhat unfavorable, I guess, from the perspective that it does have that kind of lust for riches, that is a common negative stereotype associated with Jewish people that anti-Semites typically use, like, oh, the covetous Jew. I mean, that is sort of on display. So I guess I could see it from that perspective.
But it's not born out of a non-reality.
No, it's not exactly.
Before we get to recommendations, what do you guys think of Lakeith Stanfield in this?
I was gonna say, I thought he was great.
I thought he was great too. I mean, I think
he's everywhere. He's all over.
He's all over the place, and all of his roles have been fairly distinct from each other. Where, it doesn't feel like he's playing the same character each time. So yeah, I thought he was great.
I didn't think his character had a lot of depth to him. I mean, he's kind of.
I don't think he needed it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with Adam Sandler's character, it's hard to develop these people around him because he's so manic and he's moving around so much. A lot of people don't get a lot of time to develop themselves. I feel like.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it was interesting though that they still fit in that he has these different sides of him where he befriends these famous black people and then he brings them to the shop and then he gets cut in by selling his fake rollies. But yeah, I think he did a good job.
I don't think that the extra players in this movie needed to have deep characterizations because they were essentially just catalyst, taking Howie to the next plot point.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. There are a lot of catalysts, like Franklin.
Yeah, like Franklin, who's a true catalyst.
This is our fourth member of the podcast.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
This is how I win.
Holy shit, I'm gonna come.
Favorite part of the movie.
I love that scene too because the guy's like, a lot of people want to work with me, Howie. I don't need this. I don't need this.
And then he just looks up. Holy shit, I'm gonna come.
Which is another person who I think won because you see him. He basically breaks
very
out of power.
briefly.
He cuts out this toxic person in his life, and it seems like he's doing all right.
Yeah.
I'd much rather win big and then get shot in the face than do whatever that guy was doing. He won. He was on the highest point of his life, and then he doesn't really get time to process that he's about to die. So he dies right when he probably the best point of his life, maybe, because I think it still would have gone downhill for him if he
doesn't seem like
stayed
he sees
alive.
it coming.
He got like one last hit. He won big. He got that rush that he was looking for, and he died while he was still enjoying it. So
yeah, you said he dies. Or the movie ends kind of on a sadder note. I think it's more bittersweet than.
Oh, I didn't say sad. I just said it was kind of expected, and
not a purely happy note where he gets away.
Yeah,
but he kind of gets away.
Yeah.
Addison, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, absolutely. I would. I mean, it's not for everyone. Certainly, the guy that was sitting next to me in the theater when Adam Sandler got shot, I think was expecting a happy ending. He's like, damn, they're just gonna fucking do my man's like that. So he was
do my man's Adam Sandler like that.
Yeah, so he was a little disappointed with it, but
51st dates.
I mean, this is a true cinematic experience.
Absolutely.
It makes you feel a wide range of things. You'll never be bored. The 2 hours fly by. It's got a great performance, great central performance from Adam Sandler, and it's an interesting take on an addiction film. So,
do you think this movie wants to leave you satisfied, or is it?
No, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is to leave you asking questions and definitely leave you feeling like a raw nerve, which it does.
Yeah.
How about you? Would you recommend?
I do recommend this. When I was looking through the Metacritic scores, there's one person who gave it an unfavorable review, and I was like, okay, well, they're an idiot. And so I clicked on it, and then I was like, oh, they're actually right, because basically it's like, if you don't like Adam Sandler, this movie's gonna suck.
Yeah.
It's really
not gonna work the way it's intended.
Oh, I don't like Adam Sandler.
Well, more specifically, if you don't like Adam Sandler's character in this, like if you find his portrayal just like irritating, which I could see that certain people,
I could see it being frustrating for people who are like, just make one right decision, like just once make one good choice here.
Even beyond that, where it's just like the way he has his teeth, are always like in the frame. Like you can find someone like that like overly irritating, and you don't want to watch an hour and a half of them running around.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how everyone in the movie feels. Like, I'm tired of looking at your face.
That is true. Yeah.
When his wife
says that,
yeah,
she laughs at him. When he tries to get back together and says, "I can't fucking stand you."
Yeah, that was harsh.
But I would recommend
it. The sight of me.
Yeah, he's the Jewish Joker.
Every movie is a Joker origin story.
I recommend it if you are looking for a different experience, in movies, because this really is a very unique experience as far as movie going.
Yeah.
Is concerned. I feel like. Josh, what do you think?
Hell no. Lakeith Stanfield didn't say
Black Jew Power.
Did he say Black Jew Power?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar has a very interesting line about how black people are Jews, and there's always the historical connotation.
Well, black Israelites, that's like a whole thing.
Yeah, and slavery and all that stuff. I don't know what I was gonna say with that. Just thought of that, but yes, I would recommend this movie very much. I like movies that are challenging and are weird. My favorite movie of the year is a very weird movie, and I don't think it's for everybody. And I am more favorable towards movies that try something that is frustrating and makes the audience engage in a way that they don't normally.
You're talking about Lighthouse?
No, I'm talking about Captain Marvel.
Yeah, a movie that isn't like, it's going to be okay, don't worry about it. Something that's like trying to comfort you. This movie is constantly trying to make you feel awful.
An
And
original
it succeeds.
story, interesting. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be something I necessarily agree with, but I'm much kinder to movies that are trying something.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you said your favorite movie of the year was pretty weird. I'd love to hear more about that. Why don't we go ahead and...
Oh, are we going to transition to something else?
Yeah, let's talk about 2019 as a whole.
Should we do a little break?
Yep.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Holy shit, I'm gonna come.
Continued in part 2.